Hey, it's Chad. How's it going, Chad?
How's it going?
Well, it looks like we're back for another segment here at AWS On Air Live. My name is Jeff Marushak. I'm a senior solutions architect on our DoD Air Force team, and I'd like to introduce my co-host, Chad.
Hey, everybody. My name is Chad Lacey. I'm a global sales strategist at the AWS. And, quick change of wardrobe. We just heard from Ahuva talking about the application migration service, and she mentioned the move and improve. I asked her if she had to get me a T-shirt.
She got the shirt. I like it.
So it's all about move and improve. But keeping with the theme of doing some migrations, we've got John joining us, who's got some incredible information about some updates to the database migration. Right, John?
That's right. Hey guys, good morning. Thanks for hosting us here. It's been a really interesting couple of weeks leading up to reInvent, as it always is. You know, there's lots of neat stuff going on with respect to new products and deployments and services, and database migrations is a key thing for AWS, and I'm really pleased to announce we've finally got Schema Conversion integrated as a managed service part of our database migration service platform. So that was really a big thing for us to get that out the door late last night.
That's great, John. Well, let's start with setting the stage here. Kind of walk us through DMS, just kind of a quick overview, and we'll start there.
Sure. So DMS, we launched it way back at reInvent 2015, which hard to believe it's been so long. The years fly by, but to say it's evolved a lot since then would be an understatement. So with the database migration, there's a whole lot of different moving parts to it. You can go in and go right back to the start where somebody does the sales pitch. Say, okay, let's just move the database. Well, there's a lot more to it than that, right? There's all the connecting applications. There's the different components of the database. You've probably got reporting layers in there. You've got third-party apps that connect in. You've probably got custom things that you've built yourself. Whether they're in-house applications or third-party products all using it. And you've got to figure out, okay, all of these things need to move as part of the migration. But even that's taking it too simply. What about, say you're moving a whole data center? You could have tens or hundreds of databases to move. So these are the things that we need to think of when we're looking at a database migration. And you need to go right back to the start and go, well, first off, if I'm going to migrate, do I know what I have? And if we look at the history of DMS, we've been adding new features and capabilities to it as years have gone by. At the most basic level, it's been adding support for more database engines. You can start with some of the core basics that everyone knows about. Your Oracles and SQL servers, but then you've got to add in new engines, the open source platforms that have kept evolving and growing as time goes on. New data warehouse systems, NoSQL systems, and whatever else you might need to use to move your data lakes. So, that's one area that we've worked with in time with DMS. But, going back to what I was saying, you need to know what it is you have. Last year at reInvent, we launched this thing called Fleet Advisor. And that makes it easy to discover all of your on-premises databases, so you know what it is you do have before you even get that migration going. And your next step, once you find out what you have, is to do an evaluation of them. What are potential targets in AWS? Does it make sense to move it and keep it as it was? Or maybe it's time to adopt some more modern cloud-native platform as part of your migration. And that's where some of this assessment comes in, this evaluation. And we had launched the AWS Schema Conversion tool many years ago to help do just that, do that evaluation, look at the compatibility between the old guard technology and the new cloud native options out there, and really give you those choices and options. And once you've done that evaluation and you dive into there and you do the conversion with the Schema Conversion tool, then you've actually got to migrate the data, make sure it all migrates across properly, make sure you do it in a way that doesn't impact your business users, and just do this little thing at the end called testing, right? You need to make sure that it actually worked. So there's a whole lot of steps to a database migration that need to be considered when making that plan, because as we all know, databases are the core of pretty much every business out there. So you don't take that responsibility lightly. You want to make sure you do a good job, check off all those boxes, and do things in a seamless and integrated manner that makes it easy for customers to migrate.
Yeah, and it's probably safe to say that no two databases are alike. They're going to be different from the moment you install them and put a piece of data in there. So that initial figuring out what you have is a key part.
It may be a bit of an old expression, but every database is truly a unicorn. Even ones that think, oh, this should be the same. We've got the same piece of software as the customer down the road. Well, chances are they added a custom field in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Or they did
yeah.
some integration that you'd never seen before.
So, John, you touched on it a second ago. I want to see if we can drill down just a little bit. So historically, we've had a managed service with the database migration service, and we've historically had a separate tool with the AWS Schema Conversion tool. How does what you're launching today, how do they relate, and what does it look like for the future for people who are doing database migrations?
Sure. So, at AWS, one of the things we've always been very forward about is getting things to market quickly. And that's pretty much what we did with the schema conversion tools. Like, look, we know people need something. What can we do? How can we get it out there as quickly as possible in a way that makes the most sense for them? And the other thing to note is that times change, people's mentality evolves, and of course, technology changes with that. And when we launched the database migration service, it was first and foremost important for us to put a managed service out there to make it easy to migrate data. People don't want to have to monitor the state of every last transaction that's going across from the source to the target. They don't want to necessarily have to learn how to install, configure, and maintain a replication server. There's I wouldn't say there's a black art to it, but there's definitely a set of skills that are needed. But with the database migration, there's actually two core components to it. There's the schema migration or conversion, and then there's the data migration that comes afterwards. So, a bit of database 101, I'm sure most people listening in are all aware of this, but, a database has sort of two components. The schema, which defines the structure and the setup of the database. So, the tables that are in there that maybe you've got a customer table and an inventory table and an address table, all have different columns with rows of data in there. And then on top of that, you have procedures and functions and triggers, which, adds some level of business logic. But that's just the raw structure of the database. Once you've got that, you then populate it with data. And the database migration service was all about moving the data from one database type to another. But the first step was actually converting the schema. And this was where the AWS Schema Conversion tool came in. It would convert that logic, if you will, from one type to another type, whether that was Oracle to Postgres, SQL Server to MySQL, or some other formats. AWS SCT supports a whole plethora of conversions today. And way back when we launched, there was a bit of a mentality in the market of the day that if people are doing an analysis of on-premises systems, you probably want an on-premises tool. So that's where we launched SCT, to get it quick to market and to give people something that they were comfortable with installing, using locally, doing that analysis locally. It just made sense for the time. But as things have evolved, we've realized there's been some challenges and some problems with that. Generally speaking, you've got people that, first off, you've got an IT department that are probably a little suspicious of a tool to be installed locally. So, there may be some hoops to jump through to allow them to install that piece of software locally and, do all the validation checks. And then secondly, there's performance considerations in there. So the schema conversion tool, it's a fairly intensive process to do a full analysis of possibly a database schema containing tens of thousands of tables and procedures and what have you. And it could be that you would need a fairly beefy machine to do that analysis locally. You're not necessarily just going to install it on your laptop. So, you got to get that checkbox from IT to install it, and then go, oh, by the way, I need a big old server somewhere I can install it on and run. It's,
right.
There's some hurdles. So with with the launch of Schema Conversion inbuilt to AWS DMS, we get rid of those things. It's now a managed service. People are comfortable with that these days. And you get to leverage the power of AWS to do that conversion. So all the compute, all the processing is now done on an EC2 box that we manage and administer for you. So you get rid of all of those concerns. And then on top of all of that, there's this, just what I call almost icing on the cake, this integration. You've got one service that flows from discovery with DMS Fleet Advisor to conversion with DMS Schema Conversion through to migration with the core DMS replication technology.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to me to see how far we've come with doing this type of work. Because I remember back in the day when I was just a systems admin and just upgrading from one version of a server product to another and had to do a schema conversion, and I was scared to death that something was going to break and I was going to blow this thing up. And man, we've made it so much easier. So I love the fact that we're continuing to iterate on this and are now at a place where the schema conversion tool is embedded in and just part of the migration service. That's great.
Yeah, John, can you tell us? You talked about a managed service. You want to just briefly talk about exactly what a managed service is, really quick, and then some of the benefits you get, because you kind of painted the picture already. You don't want to buy a whole bunch of new database servers, but then have to buy some more servers to do the conversion. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So managed services is really, I'm probably oversimplifying things, but it's the core of what AWS is, right? We offer managed services for customers. If we take a simple example, obviously I live in the database world. The fact that you can manage and run, install, configure, maintain a database, say a PostgreSQL database, that doesn't make you special. That doesn't make you special as a company. The company down the road can do that exact same thing. There's no differentiation in there at all. The differentiation is the added value that you build on top of that database, the secret sauce that's unique to your company that gives you that advantage in business compared to the person down the road. The same thing goes in the database migration space. You can go to any number of vendors out there and buy prepackaged database migration software. You can install that, you can configure that, you can maintain that, but there's nothing special about it. It's just software. So at AWS, we're all about making that easy, and that's where the database migration service comes in. We manage and maintain that database migration for you. We make sure that it's up and running. We make sure it has the right resources. The security patches are there. The availability is there. You've got the option to do things like multi-availability zone for database migration, which is something that, frankly, I don't think many people would have done before a managed service. So it just brings it to that next level.
Yeah. Well, John, I got to tell you, you've got me excited. I love what you're saying, but I want to see it. So do we have a demo?
Yeah, you bet. We've got a quick demo. Nothing's real until you see it, right? So
that's right.
Let me just get going and see if I can get this shared out. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, let's just hit this. I'm going to minimize that and bring up. Hopefully, everybody can now see my remote desktop. Is that fair to say?
I'm not seeing it yet. Hopefully Tabitha's going to be able to bring it up for us.
Oh, I'm having technical difficulties. I've got it up.
Maybe. Uh-oh.
All right. Can we not share a remote desktop? All right, let me try this. Geez, it's not letting me share that. It's gonna make it real hard. Okay, tell you what, I can do this real quick. Let me just switch over.
That's the fun of doing a live show, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just the joys of demos. 2 seconds, and let me try sharing a particular window. All right, so I'm going to have to do a slightly different demo than I was planned, but hopefully you can see this one now. Can everyone see my AWS console?
Here we go.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So I can I will not be able to show the database servers themselves because I'm just using the web browser, but let me just get going. Boy, talk about doing it on the fly. Isn't this going to be fun? 2 seconds, guys. Sorry about that. It is up and running, but for some reason, you guys can't see that screen. So I blame the sharing software. Anyways, here we go. We're up on the AWS console, logging in. So now you can see this is definitely a real demo and not something that I've just pre-canned.
That's right.
And we go in and we're going to the talk about this integrated. So there's no separate products or separate tools. It was all launched last night in all of the regions. So although I'm in North Virginia, you should be able to see it everywhere. So here we have the DMS console. I was talking a little bit earlier about the different components of a migration. I'm not going to go into each one of them, but you can see we have an option here on the left to go and perform an inventory of your database. And, at some point later on, once you're ready to go, you can actually start migrating them with your replication instances. But, that wasn't the new launch for today. What is new is this ability to convert inbuilt to the database migration service. And there's a few different components to it. I'll just go into them very briefly. We have what we call an instance profile. So as we go into here, this is just very standard AWS type security and configuration. In here, we have just things that tell which subnets we want to launch our replication or our conversion instance in, what security group we're going to use, what IAM role we're going to have, and then all of the settings, the project settings, if you will, for the conversion get stored in an S3 bucket. So that's why we've got that all in here. So this is just high-level configuration you would do once, and you could use multiple times over if you wanted. We then go into the data providers, and this in basically database 101 speak, these are your database connections, your ODBC information. So I'm going to be migrating in this demo from a SQL Server source database to a PostgreSQL target database. And in here, is just the standard information database IP or DNS name with the port and your usernames and your passwords. With DMS Schema Conversion, it mandates the use of AWS Secrets Manager. So you go and you can maintain all your usernames and passwords in Secrets Manager. So no need to have them, stored as plain text anywhere or anything like that. So you can see in this example, I am an AWS employee, so my databases are actually all in AWS already. But these servers, they don't have to be in AWS. They can just as easily be on premises. So you can have your source SQL Server on premises and your target Postgres in this example can be in AWS. No problem there. So once you've got that all configured up, you then go into what we call a migration project, because that is what we're actually doing. We are migrating now. We'll go in, I'll load this up. And I've, again, for sake of time, I have pre-created this, right? So in the case of, an actual project, you would go in and create a new one. And essentially what you do there is you specify what the source is, what your target is, and then what happens behind the scenes is DMS will launch an EC2 instance on your behalf, and it'll perform the assessment of that source database and let you know how easy or hard it's going to be to perform a conversion. But because I've already pre-created it, I will just go and straight into the migration project. Oh, hold on, I'm in the wrong place. Go to the Schema Conversion tab, and I will hit Launch Schema Conversion. So what that's going to do, it's going to take a few seconds to bring it up. And I'll just make my window a bit bigger. Hopefully that doesn't confuse anything for the screen share. And we can see what we have here is a fairly standard IDE-like environment. So if anybody's used, whether it's standard code development or perhaps SQL Server or database server, I should say, maintenance, this is going to seem fairly familiar to you. We have our source on the left. We have our target on the right. You can see it's pulled this information from my source provider that I showed earlier. So in this case, I'm going from a SQL Server, which in my case is in RDS, but in most cases would be on premises, to a target over here. Now, you don't necessarily have to have anything in that target, but it's just there as sort of a placeholder, if you will. If the original screen share had worked, I would have gone in and logged onto the database servers and shown you that the target server is truly empty. There's nothing there right now. But not every demo goes according to plan, so we'll just do it this way. So I'm going to browse down the tree, if you will, into my database on my SQL Server box. And there's, a few standard databases in there, TempDB, be familiar to anybody that's used SQL Server before, as is the master. But in my case, I've got a demo DB. Go into my schemas, and I just have a sample schema that I created called DBO. Now, as I go into DBO, you can see there's a whole bunch of, tables and stuff beneath it. But I want to first show, if I just drag this up, the assessment that's been run. And again, full disclaimer, demo database makes it seem pretty straightforward, but the same thing holds for much more complex ones. Overall, you can see in my demo database here, we've got a number of objects. Some of them have converted, no problem at all. Others, not so much. We've got a couple simple actions needed to be done, and then we go down into the tables, and we can see. Here is the source SQL, here's the target SQL. That's in SQL format. Here it is in Postgres format. And if I want, at the very end, I can go through and apply this to my target. I'm just taking very close note of the time, so we'll do it pretty quick. We've also got a stored procedure in here. If I go in, you can see here's the source procedure written in T-SQL. Here's the target that's now been converted to Postgres. And if I want, I can now go through and I can hit this actions and apply my schema to the database. So that's a very quick demo. I can go into a lot more detail, but I think we're running low on time, guys. Am I correct?
Yeah, I'm saying we're just about out of time. I appreciate you kind of tap dancing and getting us there, because I know the crowd was excited to see exactly how the service is gonna operate. So, Jeff, this is super exciting. I mean, I think you and your team, congratulations on trying to make this easier for doing these large scale database migrations easier for everybody, right? Especially now, given kind of the economic climate, I think trying to make this easier for folks to move to a more cost-effective way of doing compute and running their databases is extremely important. So I think it's very timely.
And the other thing that being a managed service, the fact that we talk about the shared responsibility model and that line between security of the cloud and security in the cloud with managed services, that line moves and makes it a little bit easier, a little bit less on the plate for our customers. So really excited to see this.
Thanks for your time, guys. Really happy to have the opportunity to show it, and looking forward to seeing customers get in there and start using it.
Yeah, John, thank you so much for being on with us. And we'll be right back. This is AWS On Air live from reInvent in Las Vegas.